He screamed for help, not knowing which way to head for safety. Govies and emergency vehicles swarmed, adding to the pandemonium. Dade pushed against the crowd, descending farther down into the levels. He tuned out the sounds of chaos, the smell of rotting garbage, and the lingering tang of sulfur from the static cloud that surrounded the planet, cutting it off from the sun. The cloud sat thick in the atmosphere, covering the planet in darkness and chilled fog, all except for the sky towers that rose above it. He hoped that the lower he went, the easier it would be to cross to the other side of the city. But the throngs of people pushed back their progress. Tucking Arden closer, he shoved his way through. Using his free arm, he landed blows when he needed a hole to open in the crowd, fighting aggressively until he was able to maneuver himself and Arden into a commercial space and the corridor that led into the center of a building. Businesses lined either side of the hall. Most were closed for the day, their lights off. From here, he could continue his route through the city as the buildings slipped into one another, their entrances and exits interconnected. "I'm cold." Arden's voice was thready over the chattering of her teeth. She had not spoken for miles, pained gasps being the only sound she'd made. "We're almost there," he promised, though he had no idea where there was, or even if they'd find someone to help her in time. Being indecisive wasn't his usual weakness. He'd been born to luxury inside the sky towers, with unlimited access to the cloudless purple sky, blood-orange sun, and 2 moons. He hadn't understood the depth of his privilege until he'd walked away from that life. Perhaps he still didn't understand the extent of his loss. It didn't change the fact that he'd make the same choice again, all circumstances being what they were, because he could not embrace the life his father had set out for him. Eventually, he'd figure out where he fit in. Helplessness felt like a monster inside him. The feeling grew and pulsed, filling his mind with desperate thoughts. It reminded him that he was a tiny cog in a big, organized machine. Power had been an illusion, one he'd believed in until reality had shown him otherwise. Dade had known that providing the poor with the VitD he stole was just a bandage on a significant problem. Yet now the wiped-out VitD refinery meant the end of anything good he'd set in motion. He'd have to figure out where that left him and what his new purpose would be. He could live with his decisions that had forced him away from his family, into a life and circumstances that felt unstable. Dade had made the choices, knowing their consequences, though he clung to the hope that he wouldn't lose the 2 things most important to him, his sanity and Arden. Arden made a tiny motion with her arm, indicating the blackout band on her wrist. It was strapped there to keep the Govies from accessing the implanted data sensor they used to monitor citizens. She swallowed several times before she managed, "I have credits." The credits would be off-grid if they were keyed to the band instead of the chip beneath her skin, and hopefully not attached to Lasserre's black market accounts. Dade nodded. That was good. Dade kept credits under an assumed name to fund his activities as well. He'd put away a vast sum of money into the account for his planned escape from his family. But his codes didn't work after the fall. He wasn't really sure how it had happened. The blackout band wasn't damaged, but he'd been unable to access the funds when he'd tried to do so before rushing to the joint refinery to find Arden. For now, they could use some of her credits to get her medical attention. Any credits remaining could be used on a place to hole up. And then, when he gained access to his, they'd be okay. He hoped. "How much do you have?" he asked. She shook her head, her eyes closed. "Not a lot. I didn't plan." He knew she'd meant to die when Lasserre had attacked the joint refinery. Dade was still angry at her for attempting to throw her life away. His blood still sang with anxiety at the thought of not getting to her in time, and when he had, she had been hurt. Swallowing back the fear that once again threatened to crowd his thoughts, he focused on this task. Recriminations needed to come later,